All right. And I think we're live. Uh, all right. Hello, everybody. I know people will be joining in the next couple of seconds, probably. Um, okay, but I think we can start anyway. So uh, today I have a pleasure to speak with John McKeonem, the founder and CEO of Galarus Industry Solutions. I stepped upon Galarus when they were looking for someone for position of special purpose engineer. That got my
Mhm.
attention. We spoke with John. He showed me what they do, and some solutions that they are working on are something that I've never seen anywhere else. So, John, great to have you there here.
Well, thanks very much for having me. I sure look, our paths crossed, and we built up a relationship over the last 6 months, a year, and I'm quite happy with it. So glad to have me here today, and maybe I can talk about what we're at and explain the changes of the world around us.
Sure. So you made an impression on me as a type of a visionary
Right?
for
Oh,
sure for sure in the industry, which is quite a conservative business, really.
hmm
So I I'm curious, what's your big picture view of the future of industrial automation? And how do you think it will change the way we manufacture goods in the future?
oh, that's a big question. Do you want to jump into the abyss straight away? Right. um, okay. Oh, there's a couple of ways how we can answer this. We can start off where we are, or we can go to into the madness if you want. So
Let's
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 do
start
let
with where we are.
yeah. I think it's better to start where so we bring people along. Otherwise, it just sounds like the ramblings of a lunatic, right? So right, we are in the closing ends of a a space and time, right? Um, and like human beings, we love to put things into boxes or into some sort of format that we can understand it and structure it, right? We're all, it doesn't matter where we're from, we all do it. So what I mean by space and time now, we're in the definition of what is the third industrial revolution. Okay. Um, that's where systems are integrated into each other, okay, and be able to share automation and control and IT, right? Now, like everything with humanity, there's no grand plan, right? It's just chaos, right? And things evolve, and it's usually like a thing in nature. There's a battle and various shapes and forms of positioning within the marketplace, and then you end up with some form of stability of a structure. Okay, so our world in the industry 3.0 has kind of settled over the last couple of decades into 4 to 5 layers. Yeah, and the 4 to 5 layers, and we're going to use like we're all most of us would be aware of the ISA 9.5, International Society of Automation, released 9.5, right? And say volume two. So we just can I share a slide or something? Is it something I can?
Yeah, I think there's a button to
Yeah.
present.
Here we are. I'll do this. It's just for visual representation. You have oh, okay. Uh, 1 second. Oh yeah, I have to upload the slides. Right. Share screen. Share screen and window.
Yeah, so you're saying we have a type of a consensus of how industrial production should run, right?
We do, but it evolved. It evolved over time, and you know we all go to. We're all part of a of the proverbial production of society, production line of society. What I mean by that is, you know, we're born, we take our interest, we go through education system, we grow up in various areas which affects our culture, and we're made up of what our culture is, and then what our what influences to what we are is our exposure in life and education, right? But there is touch points in industry all the way along. Manufacturing and trade has set the standards of how things have come together. So if you can see my screen here, right? And let me just
Yeah.
do this. So everything that's produced happens on a physical form. Everything we're using, even these computers, the screens, or the headset I have on my head and glasses, so on, they're all made in some form of a production physical process, and they may be manual or semi-automatic or fully automatic, and the relevant lines. So they're production environments which processes. So to identify that in our world, that has become level one in the ISA 95 stack, and the elements within that consists of the brains of a manufacturing machine being a PLC, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
Programmable logic controller, HMI, and IPCs. Just leave it there for now, right? So when you have a process, it's a sequence of events, sequence of steps. So you have a machine that will do one step, and then you have another machine to do the next step, and so on, so on, so forth, till the process is complete in sequence or in parallel, whatever tickles your fancy, right? But then we needed a way to make them all interact as one. So along came SCADA, supervisor control data acquisition, which is the OT space type of a software to pull all these together for those who know and those who don't know. That's what it does. It's one button, ideally one button. You can start a line or a process as one, and it's like making a line like one machine, right? Rather than going up to each machine and selecting the recipe and make it run, right? So above that, then that whole OT world evolved from a sequential or an evolution of events over time. But if we look at that's what the OT space. If we look above that, you have the IT space, which in itself evolved over time as well, but separate, not directly aligned to the OT environment, right? So this would have been, I go way back as back as when I was a kid, right? Um, the office, right? Everything was paper based. The sales was done on a phone. Someone wrote down on a piece of paper and the ticket on the docket, the planning and the structure of our materials. That would have all happened in an office space. But along came software systems initially and various forms to address these manual processes within the business. And they evolved into applications, and those applications began to interact with each other to address a problem statement in the business. So you have planning, and then you have multiple sites that you want to plan, and you got a supply chain, you got HR. Now they're all addressed by different things. So we have site applications, which has been identified over time as being level 3 in the ISA 95. So site applications, manufacturing execution systems. So that's an application. There's many vendors out there. You can still do this type of thing in Excel, and many people still do, or do it
Mm-hmm.
on paper, right? But they still exist. That's a function that's still there, right? But then you have more mature organizations that will have many other things on bigger sites. They'll have building management systems. They'll have a warehouse management system. These are all applications, right? But they're all for site functions and an application. And Many other things. Anyway, laboratory information system one comes to mind for quality, right? But they're all applications that existed in departments. But if you look at it, everything's siloed in little boxes and siloed into functions, right? But there's still no grand plan. We're human beings moving things around to make things happen, right? You have
Mm-hmm.
ERP, enterprise resource planning. This is an attempt to integrate multiple sites for specific functions, such as HR, cost corporation. Finance is a big one. Finance for the whole corporation. Finance on site. Finance in the whole enterprise layer, and supply chain. Management of supply chain. So that's the main functions from an ERP, enterprise resource planning environment. Players there such as SAP and Oracle and others, right? But just to get a feel for it, right? And then you have cloud, which came along in the last decade or more, a little bit more, right? It's mainstream within the last decade, right? And this is where
Mm-hmm.
data comes to die or transform using other applications that you have en masse. But if you look at it, there's been no grand plan. They've all been laid like blocks on a wall, serially stacked together with a point-to-point integration, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, right? Now,
Yes.
all of these proprietary connections, each one of these applications are written by different people, different languages. Like, vast majority of people on this call will be speaking English, but we all have different levels of capabilities of English and comprehension. Okay, so when you're writing code, there's lots of people can write code, but there's different levels of quality and capabilities of code. So that doesn't go away. That still exists when someone's creating an application, and even more so when you're trying to get two different disparate applications to talk to each other. All right.
Mhm.
So our world, there's no grand plan. So everything is just being stitched together. Now, while it works, the quality of the connections and the data, and there's guaranteed there's IT people on here going screaming at the screen, going, he's not doesn't know what he's talking about, all the rest. It's the usual thing. And then there'll be OT boys on the other side going, he does know what he's talking about. So this is kind of a cultural divide because they've evolved in different environments, which is oil and water. Oil and water, they don't mix. Now, irrelevant what side of the divide you're on or where you've matured as an individual. I remember I said education, and we follow different paths. The automation boys would have had followed along, your PLC, your Siemens training or whatever, yeah, right? You would have followed through school or high school or natural interest. And then the IT boys would have gone down the software development route into college, and they would have learned various languages. And, you're laying blocks of what creates yourself. And the reality, the world needs all these functions, as in each one of these are functions in the ISA 95. And these functions need to interact with each other in a seamless manner. In Industry 3.0, they don't. They're held
Mhm.
together with baling, twine, and hammer and nails. It's spaghetti. They're just, everything's, if you look at any business's architect, it's all pulled and hauled together. Now, in the silence of the overwhelming noise of people complaining of what I'm saying, I want to justify my statement here, right? When we did serialization, when I was involved in serialization in life sciences, we were moving government data into an enterprise of an organization where the numbers of the data had to be randomized and divided up per batch, right? That aligned with the SKU for the manufacturing line, which had to be had to be sent with a certain range of numbers, both randomized 1 and 20,000 serial numbers, to be sent down to a line, and from the line to be applied on the packaging of the product, printed on it with a serial number. And you had, according to the GS1 code to it, and it had application identifiers, 10, 21, 17, I can't remember the last one, 1, 0, 1, right? And each one of those were in a code. So it's codifying the product. And what you were doing is applying the number, giving each product a serial number that can be traced all the way through the supply chain out to the dispensary, right? So you apply the number, you had to inspect it with a camera system so the code is reading, and then you had to um, commission the number all at the line level. Now, all of these events had to happen here. At the end of the batch, then you stop the batch. All that data had to go all the way back up and report to the government. And then the government, going cloud, right? Metaphorically, right? Cloud. You had other systems that all the dispensaries, even in the smallest village in the back end of Warsaw, we want to go, or the back end of Kerry or Dublin, still had to be able to take that pack, scan it, and it was able to connect back and do it. That was a nightmare because nothing,
Mhm.
nothing moved cleanly. Okay, and it was a point-to-point integration. I came off that and I went, there has to be a better way. And I went looking for like-minded people. And like anything in life, if you seek out those who think like you will find them. And I met a guy in 2018 called Walker Reynolds, and he was banging on about a different way of integrating, right? Breaking up these siloed thinking, separating these siloed stack, but allowing the functions, once again, I say functions, each of these functions to become functional namespaces, right? To interact with each other and complete their functions in the form of an application, all right? Now, his approach was, well, leave everything as it is, and let's just speak to it natively, whatever it may be, in its purest form, and then get it to send its only change in state. Now, IT and OT is a little bit different. The OT boys, anyone understand it? It's a we operate in a stateful change environment in general, right? The IT space operated in task orientated, right? Um, a task driven environment. So the structure and formats of the data um, do not natively interact with each other. Okay, so you have to create an environment where they can natively interact with each other. So we use a technology which is consisting of a platform that runs on hardware and runs on an OS, Linux, Windows, who cares, doesn't matter. But it has the software ability to talk to each one of these. And what you want to get it into is into an ecosystem where all things, all smart things in the business, including people, are connected and interacting with the single source of truth. Right? And the single source of truth is based on a thing called the unified namespace. So all these functional namespaces are unified where they can publish and subscribe to each other in a unified environment. And this is the fourth industrial revolution because it allows you to scale infinitely across an organization and scale at speed that has never been seen before. And Reynolds invented it or created, he coined the phrase, and it's evolved. And now we are all interacting with and using it. Does it remove
So
this? No.
so if I understand correctly, it just removes the number of integrations that you need to make, and it simplifies the system by the way how you gather and share the information.
Yeah, the good thing about it is, and for anyone that's into AI machine learning, this gives you clean, contextualized and normalized data like you've never seen before. Where up until now, oh, stick it in the lake and then I'll go clean it up myself. And that's we're still in some organizations, people are still doing that, a lot actually. But there's a shift happening because if you normalize the data, and this is the biggest thing from today, anyone take away, we contextualize and normalize the data at the edge. And every one of these functional namespaces per se in the business are edge points, right? But we will follow simple rules that we will connect them so they can collect and store and analyze, visualize, and we connect through the technology of there's various platforms. And for the automation boys, right, let's just go through the names. You have BACnet, Modbuzz, Profibuzz, Profinet, OPC UA, OPC the OPC UA. Yeah, they're the main ones. And so you need something that can talk all of them to every PLC that exists. So you need a driver and you need a suite that you can pull from. And that exists. And there's tools
Mhm.
out there. So some of the names, Litmus, no in no order, Ignition Edge for those, Node-RED, actually. Now, Node-RED, and there's Node-RED for the open engineers and the play that came out 2016 of IBM. And now there's FlowFuse, which gives you certified Node-RED, which you can use in regulated environment or non-regulated environment. It's up to your flavor of risk. But Node-RED is written, the nodes are in Node.js, and you can certify the nodes to create flows to extract data, right? Very excited about it. And there's others. There's um, um, uh, what's it called out in Norway. There's a couple of tools out in Norway, which is Crossover or Crosser in Norway, which follows a similar principle to Node-RED, but and more emerging into this industrial space. And why are they doing? They're converting into MQTT. Now, why do we say MQTT? Where we did this before in this way, we flooded our networks and infrastructure with lots of data, and repetition data, because we were building on limitations of technology. But technology is a compound of learning, advances based on the compound of learning, and it's evolving at an alarming rate. The more you know it can expand even quicker. So we do not want to populate our network with repetitive useless information. So we ended up using a technology called MQTT, Message Queuing
Mhm.
Telemetry Transport, right? Which invented by Arlen Nipper and Andy Stanford Clark while they worked in IBM in 1998. It was released to the world. It did it for Phillips 66 Oil and Gas, and the Eclipse Foundations became open. And I guarantee you, everyone on this planet, whoever uses a mobile phone, is using MQTT. But MQTT over the last, yeah, every single device is using MQTT somewhere along its connective data exchange. Now, the the um, the MQTT has become the de facto um, IoT protocol. Why? Because it creates a connection, right? It extracts the tags, and it's like an ECG on your body. You never have an ECG, where you're running
Yes,
a
yes, yes.
treadmill, right? So it's monitoring. So you create a connection, it's there, it creates a heartbeat, so you're active and live. And it's only transmitting the change in state. So if there's no change in state, it doesn't send the data. Now, for anyone who, and hopefully there's data science on board, imagine being able to reach into a machine and go, all the IOs. Well, you send them in, you're only sending a change in state. You're not pulling all the IOs in a poll response like what we traditionally did. You're only sending ones that change in a sequence, in an event. So the machine's producing every one of the IOs, you see a pattern, a sequence, but it's based on timestamp, right? So now you can focus on, you can start creating models, so you know what a good model versus a fluctuation one. You can see variances because the resolution of the data is stateful coming from the OT layer. We could do similar things then in the IT layer, but you're looking at transactional event and how all that data interacts together, right? But this broker-based technology is MQTT and MQTT broker. I'm sure everyone knows WhatsApp. So it's a type of technology. If you see the three dots, when you see a message coming in WhatsApp, that's MQTT in play. There's a change in state. You're connected to a group, and when you see the three dots, that's indicating that the event is changing into the ecosystem. So that's an indicator. That's an example. Now, this is evolving rapidly. The fourth industrial revolution, the Germans started it back in 2011 in Hanover, Messi, and it's evolving. There's a discrepancy between Industry 4.0 from the European perspective and the American perspective. Two different cultures we have to take into account. But whatever way you look at it in humanity, and you step further out and you take off our European hats versus American hat, humanity will always find a way to pick the most efficient over time. It'll win its way. It'll natural progression, and something that's cost effective and fast and gives the benefit to the business will naturally win. The unified namespace structure is doing that. And if we look at the traditional IT houses in ERP, there's SAP have released a book called Industry 4.0 by SAP, or SAP Industry 4.0. And in the following pages, which I have memorized, page 30, page 156, page 501, 502, and 503, they speak all about the UNS. So the UNS is landed in the traditional sense, and they talk about it. And many others, right? Yeah.
So basically, to understand united or a unified namespace is the way of aggregating the data. Do I understand correctly?
Contextualizing and normalizing the data in a consumable format into an ecosystem. So the unified namespace is a digital architecture, right? And you're not buying an application. They are applications that are used to create a UNS, right? And there's many various, like a toolbox. You have many tools that can be used that have similar capabilities. So if I look at it here, yeah, we have this is a simulation of the production environment. So we use edge devices to, in this scenario I have here, we're using Ignition to extract the data from the various. So this is a bioreactor. This is just a robot and an arm. This is a conveyor system, a machine simulation. And we're using Ignition to speak to these native things. Now, inside in this slide, you'll have products like Siemens, you'll have Beckhoff, ABB, B&R, the usual suspect, Rockwell, right? I'll pause there for a second. All bar one of the OEM control systems I'm aware of have adopted MQTT capability outbound. And the one that has not adopted is Rockwell Automation, right? They're the last one. Now, I know of a very large automotive company that said, you will adopt MQTT or you're out. Okay, I can't say the name, but I am aware of it, right? So that is ongoing. Now, Siemens comes native. So Siemens S7 1200, Siemens S7 1500, native MQTT outbound. Bosch Rexdorf, native MQTT. Pick anyone, ABB, B&R, they're all capable of it now. Okay, they've all adopted as outbound. They're usually, prior to that was OPC outbound for an interface of extracting the data, which is a poll response. You still have that capability, but you now have MQTT also. Right. So that's how we connect. We collect it by publishing into the broker, and you can be bidirectional with this as well. So you can tell it to do things as well with
Hmm.
this ecosystem. And then we need to store it. Well, then you have all the usual suspect. You need a historian. Our default is Canary. We find them an amazing platform. It's cost effective and it's beneficial for the small SMEs and large organizations. But if someone else has something else, such as the legacy things like OSI Pi and life sciences, we can still connect to that. But AWS with their S3 data lake, and then Azure with their suite. Now we have Snowflake with your data warehouse. You know, all of these things, you need to store the data. So once we do that, we can store it, and it's usually in the cloud. You can stick it on prem as well, but try to encourage everyone to move off prem as much as possible. And all the other
Why?
concern, why? Cost effectiveness and adaptability, and the market is because the market, the competitors are shifting, and then you're allowing yourself to focus. Where's the business? Here's the business. You're not an IT house. It can be more cost effective by creating the resilience in the connections between the plant where these reside and your cloud instance. And the cloud instance, you can have you can pick and choose what region you want to store your worker data for relevant cost effectiveness. You can, from the extreme of bare metal and use an open stack, like let's say automotive industry are using things like OpenStack, right? They're using open bare metal where they buy time on a data center and they're building their own IT infrastructure on that, or telecoms. You know, telecoms are heavily involved in the OpenStack. But then on other players like life sciences will be heavily involved in your traditional cloud hosting environments such as AWS or Azure. But it's your costing and your maintaining of it. So if you've got an IT infrastructure, you must maintain it on site, and that needs skills and capabilities. Now, skills and capabilities, you don't always have be able to keep them on site. You know, people want to move around, and we've all been seeing the situation, all of us. In one stage in our life, oh, that's Piotr. He's the expert in that, and Piotr's been here for years, and it's his system, and he knows it. Well, Piotr decides to get married and goes off to Mexico. Right? So then who else is left? Now the company's left with a gaping hole, and they have an IT infrastructure on prem, and they're scrambling to hire someone to pick up the pieces, and so there is
Yeah.
positives and
Yeah.
negatives. So cloud hosting, you can contract it out.
Yeah. I've had a similar conversation recently. That I've been searching for a contractor for a company to contract them for a job, and they were like two sole traders, and I said, okay, but the client will need to keep the software after the commissioning. And they're like, no, we will maintain the software afterwards. Client doesn't get the software. I'm like, what if you die? You know. And who's going to maintain the software if the client doesn't have the software? So yeah, indeed, moving it to cloud removes certain amount of risk, business risk in this case, but doesn't it also create another types of risks? And you know very well, better than me, that industry is very conservative and very sensitive about the data that they move
Piotr, I
outside of the
lost.
facility.
Yeah, they're very conservative, right? Okay. Why are human beings afraid? All of us are the same. We're afraid of the unknown, right? So
Hmm.
let's all remember the first time we saw a bicycle and you seen someone ride, go, oh, that's amazing, but you're afraid to get up on it without stabilizer in case you fall off. There's fear. So we have to let's reflect back on basic things as we are human beings. And these things that prevent us from doing things are fear of the unknown. Uh, and where we have the unknown, we fill in with our imagination. And we'll come up with more scenarios of why not to do something than to do it. Okay?
Hmm.
So moving this is where their business is, and they like to have people with a paper base. They can walk down the line with a clipboard and fill stuff in, and I've got control. Right. In reality, they're missing half the business. They don't have pure understanding of what's happening in the business with clarity of the data. They have an understanding that they're comfortable with, and this brings me to this. Let me just go to this. Right. They have an unconscious incompetence. Right. And what I mean by that is, let's walk this scenario. Here's a prime example of this. You're a kid and you're in a car, right? And you're watching your dad, your mom, your uncle, your grandpa, whatever it may be, right, driving the car. And you're going, oh yeah, look at that, that's great. and he's doing it with so confidence, confident, no issue. I can do that, press the pedals, the clutch, the gear, I can do it. But you you have you you're unconscious of your own incompetence, that you've never sat behind the wheel, right? So you don't know, but you think it's easy, okay? And then when you sit in the chair for the first time behind the wheel, you go, you're now conscious of your incompetence of combining the steering wheel, the clutch, the brake, the accelerator, and changing the gear, right? I'm giving this scenario just for ease of understanding. But
Hmm.
you must prevail in order to engage, to gain knowledge and experience. So you come to a threshold, the start point, where you either give up or you break through. Yeah, right.
Hmm.
This is for anything. This is for anything. I'm coming back to your point about moving data in the cloud, right? But then you come to a point, you're conscious of your competence. You can drive, but you must still concentrate, right? After you've gone from a learner to a novice. But then all of a sudden, if you're driving for a while, you leave the office, you leave work, you jump into the car. You're unconscious of your own competence because you're in autopilot driving the car, and you're going to the shop. You're not consciously thinking about how to drive. It's just happening, like walking. Yeah. That can
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
applied to anything in life. So back to the question about moving data, right? You live in elements of things that will stop you. You're unconscious of you're conscious and unconscious of the incompetence of moving data from the site and what you can do with it. But you need to take the transition, right? And you need to go through these pain points to have greater learnings that come to an efficiency where your whole plant is working and you're gathering data and shifted your business, right? Based on their new learnings and findings. If you don't, you will stand still and never move. And inevitably, when something stands still in anything from nature to life, it's going to end at some stage, right?
Okay.
It's going to
So
end. Yeah.
so uh, so what is what is the future of the industry? What do you think the future of industry is, and where do you
I'm
think this
okay.
transformation is taking us?
Right. Let's change it. The future of industry, future of humanity, is there because they're both interactive with each other. You can't avoid. You can't untie them. Industry is not just. It's just all around us. We all interact with it. We use it. We. When I took this bottle from a table, fridge, my impact was I pulled on the supply chain, and now I'm the end user. I'm a consumer, right? So all of that is for everything. So what I see very quickly is the moment I've taken that out. Yeah, I go back to my little diagram. 1 second. Industry 3.0 and parallel, Industry 4.0. I've taken my bottle out of the refrigerator at the retail park. Yeah. Well,
Hmm.
that event where we're heading with industry is. Well, I need a better diagram to walk through this. 1 second. Change it. All right. So, I I'm an end user here. Yeah, and I've just
Hmm.
consumed that bottle. And that bottle and its whole life cycle, the refrigerator is a piece of equipment that's and the what do you call it, the till, where it's gone out, checked out, the till out of stock, the application that's in the store, all of that checked out. That is published back into the broker. So an event has changed, and you get multiples of these feeding back, all integrated. So the supply chain is integrated with each other. All of those systems and events gathering into applications that may reside on feeding into the cloud or feeding into the enterprise systems, all the applications goes into the cycle of industry, all the way down to automating the whole thing where the machine is happening. Uh, 1 second now. I have a better. This is better. This is better. This is better. This is better. Right. That's where we use that one. Right. So we all sell stuff. So I've just been a consumer out here. I've just consumed something, but there's hundreds of thousands of Johns out there, right? Millions, and we're all consuming stuff. So that pulls a demand on selling stuff. Okay. Then you need to plan stuff. So we have an ERP, and this is all business. We have an ERP system application, whether you're planning it by telephone, paper, or on a system, doesn't matter. And then you need to execute the manufacturing. So you have an MES. These are all become functional nodes in the business. And then you need to, after you make the um, the plan and the execution of it, you need to monitor it. So the SCADA system would monitor all the individual processing line systems and gathering the data, publishing all the events into the namespace. Look, functional, all these functions are published into a unified namespace, and then their change in state is being published into the greater ecosystem. But I'll follow it then. You inventory the business after you produce production, your outbound, your waste, you have your yields and so on and so forth. And then you ship the product and you order more materials and stuff, and then you repeat. And this is everyone's business, from a simple store selling the bottle, yeah, to the manufacturing facility. This is all these things, and they all work the same way. So we see them all starting to interacting and integrate with each other. So the supply chain becomes digitized if they're all able to talk to each other on the same namespace structure. So you have seamless machines talking to machines. Now, this is happening now. I'll give an example of who's doing it. Tesla. Tesla and their supply chain is digitized. So the glass manufacturer in France and the production line in Fremont, they're directly connected with each other, right? So the lines can talk to each other. So the output, if you get a change in yield on the output of the line in France, yeah, the line in Fremont and the planning and the ecosystem can autonomously interact with each other to make a change.
But the question is, or would be from me, we have a lot of unpredictable events happening in the world all the time. So
correct.
At the moment, computers are not very good at predicting random events, or even acting in a situation of a random event. So even the example you gave, right? You have a one production facility in France, another production facility in the United States. Between these production facilities, you have the supply chain,
yes.
which needs to work almost like a machine to be part of this system, and to be reliable enough to make this data actually valuable.
Would you ask me where is things going? That's where I see it going, because you can digitize everything right now, and with humanity's capability to connect to any point in the planet has never been so much advanced. So we look at things like low orbiting satellite and locations and SpaceX and which we've used. It is stabilizing, getting better and better, and there are other players coming to the field. So digitizing the supply chain. So pick a ship, for example. Every ship and every aircraft have a transponder, right? And the transponder gives us location and I am boat number 345 ABXY. It's a number reference, right? And I am at this location. Aircraft use transponders to say what they are and where they are, right? We are now able to track all points on the planet. So with their cargo, you said yourself, you can contextualize the structure of everything that's in that. That data that's in that vessel or in that aircraft that's in transit, and whether they're serialized, the whole profile can be shared within this ecosystem. So you can see everything in real time. If something falls or disappears or gets removed or a change in event, the ecosystem as it grows becomes aware of it, and everything comes interconnected. Now, is our world at that right now? No, but we're moving that direction very quickly, right? Very quickly. We have various sizes of clients, right? We have small organizations that don't need this, but they have this internally themselves, and they create a UNS, a functional namespace, and increased efficiency. So they can see their business, it's digitally transformed, and they can connect to the digital supply chain as it grows out. And the digital supply chain is starting to grow. All right. Now, we have larger organizations who are already digitizing the supply chain, but using the UNS as a way of integrating these variables and bridging the complexities. Look, remember what I said earlier, bridging the complexities of the unknown, of the unknown. So a lot of places will be old technology, 30, 40 years old, 20 years old, doesn't matter what it is. We can still digitize it, and it can still run side by side. Look, side by side Industry 3.0 environment digitized and integrate with an Industry 4.0 supply chain or ecosystem. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So this allows for these for these unpredicted or unknown events or events to become aware within the ecosystem as the UNS expands. Okay,
I see.
incorporating multiple sites, multiple organizations.
Okay, so what is your company's place in this picture?
Oh, that was we've been on a journey with that. That's a very good question. So remember the get-go, I said I was looking for a new way of doing it, a way that broke up these vertical silos and stopped to help customers not to be locked into someone else's business case, such as a software supplier or an OEM machine supplier, being locked into their business plan. Because when someone says, well, we standardize on Rockwell. Okay, you do. But now you're locked into Rockwell's business plan. Oh, no, we're not. You're standing. Yes, you are. You're locked into, you are caught by the limitations of their technology. So I went looking for a way of doing it differently. Okay. And that was the whole principle of doing this. To do that, to make this offering, we had to create a company, first of all, of individuals that wanted to work in a different way, wanted to be able to interact with the current way of doing business, but also educate individuals and companies and converse with them at all points in the vertical, right? So you have to educate first, and then we start to get to the point where we want to digitally transform them based on the ability to capture data, to turn it into information, to make intelligent decisions, to make it more sustainable and efficient. Okay, so this addresses sustainability and energy efficiency, production efficiency, many benefits. But when the world is being designed, well, I need an application where IT has been dominated. Oh, you're going to have an application, and this is the best application because these are the consultancy houses that say this is what it's by far, and it's better. And it's kind of an askew view, right? Or I must buy this machine because it's always Rockwell, or it's always Siemens, or it's always rather than looking at as their functional need, and you educate them that says, is this the best function? Is this node or function and this application or this piece of equipment, is this the best for it? And how do we make it standard to communicate into an ecosystem? So you have a minimum technical requirement document that we issue and we give to clients to help them educate, which they in turn give to their providers. And that levels the playing field. So all providers then can enter into this ecosystem, and none of them are controlling a vertical silo of data or information. They still get to play at the table, yeah, but they're no
Mm-hmm.
longer dominating and locking the client in. So we provide the education, then we provide the consultancy to help the client define what they want, right? In a user requirement specification. And then we have no preference to the technology of choice, just that it meets the requirement of a UNS, and we can build, deploy, and execute a technology. And we train the client along to become us, and we train them. Now, I have failed client staff members because they would come here and they thought they were coming on a beery session in Kerry, for a few pints on a weekend to get a cert. Day two, I'd be having a serious discussion with certain guys, and I said, dude, you're wasting my time, you're wasting your time, and you're wasting your company time. You got a few minutes to wake up and cop on. If not, you can get the next flight out of here, right? Because I'm not going to waste my customers' time. I'm not going to waste my time. So when people come here, this is serious. They come to learn from us, and they come here to become us. If you're good enough, yeah, you'll survive. If you don't, well, I'll tell the client, you send me a dud. You sent me someone that wanted to come on a holiday and drink beer, right? And that's happened. We've all seen it, lads go on courses, and sit back in the room, da. We don't let that happen. So to continue on what you said to me, what do I do? So we educate, we consult, we design, we help the consult, we get the user requirement, we help design, build, deploy, and we train. And then we stand up an organization to digitally transform. And it's in all verticals, from the traditional digitization of the OT space to the transformation of the IT functional applications into a common ecosystem in what is the fourth industrial revolution under a unified namespace architecture. All
Hmm.
right.
So if I understand correctly, you don't do the traditional integration anymore. You just pick the data and you deal with the data.
Yeah, look, we used to build machines, man. You know, the crew here are excellent. You know, we can converse with anyone on the OT space, and we're well known in life sciences about all the machine builders and players, so we can interact with them. And you know as well as me, like anything in life, when people meet each other in a professional hour, there's always that sniff test. You know, you're looking and going, is he good enough? You know, you did it with me, man. I know you did, right? We did it in the past, you know, back and forth going, is this guy real? So when that sniff test is done, you pass it, then it opens up doors for communication, and then allows us to build relationships and allows us to share knowledge and information. And that then helps us build things out, make greater improvements for humanity as a whole, right? Now, I don't want to get up in the soapbox and start claiming that I'm growing wings or something, right? I'm just going, no, you have to do what's right for the client and the environment that that customer has his facility in. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, I see. All right. So you gave an example of Tesla, which is quite interesting. I had no idea it works like that. Can you give an example of your project? How your client has implemented state of the art solution, and how they benefit from that right now.
Right. I'll take different sizes. So let's speak. There's you must. We will only work with someone that is ready to digitally transform, right? And that you know that by your first engagement in the education stage and whether people's interested. Um, the usual people we get pushback on is from IT or IT are usually people that push back on. So you have to do go through the educational stage to show what the benefits are and to show people that you're not there to threaten them. You're there for the greater good of the company. Now, once you get past all that, you start off with a proof of value. Okay, and I always say to people, don't take a big bite. Take a small little win, but don't take something that's and don't I don't use the word POC because a proof of concept is it's concept, you know. And you hear me say it before, you know, a proof of concept is like three lads in a pub and we have a few beers and go, I have an idea, right? You know, let's build a boat at 4 o'clock in the morning, you know, right? You know, it's not to undermine the concept. It's just what its level of maturity, right? A proof of value, and I make a comparison. You need to get something that's going to give value to individuals within the process, but the departments and the company that they're getting value out of for whatever they're going to put into it. And the value is from the customer, but also the value in from the providers or the mediator, whatever you want to say it, whoever's involved. They all have to get value out of it. Otherwise, there's no interest. All right.
Hmm.
And if you're giving something for free, you have no mass in it. You just go, yeah, it's free, right? So there's a bit of pain in that. Now, so we convince people to do POV, and we ask them to identify an asset or where the pain point is in the business that they see it. So I'll pick a small company that it's a mill, right? They mill oats and they
Okay.
process grains and things. Um, and and the reason I wanted to work with them is because um, they're in a community and they're there for over 100 years, and they have lines and they're embedded in the community. So, and you know what I mean by this. If you're in the community, generations have worked there and things moved on. They've invested into the business. They're producing product. They're competitive. They're profitable. They're just lacking some things in data and so on and so forth. In making the next step of refinement, yeah, to see where their inefficiencies are. They can focus on capital investment, what to do rather than just buy a new line. So I wanted to work with them. So we told them, right, which is the which is the most profitable line, that one, right? Which is more problematic area within that line, and they'll identify spots. They know it. They know it, and most of who know it more than anyone is the operators,
Yes.
right?
Always.
And yeah, always, 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 always. If anyone takes away, the operators are the smartest people in the business. You need to talk to them, right? They need to talk to them. So you take that all into account. You start building up a profile, and then that helps you identify um, the cost opportunity based on the knowledge that they have. So if you go to finance and said, if that line's not working for an hour, what's the cost of it to the business? Not working. So you use that to try and give you a baseline of where the potential, if I save every hour, what's it going to give to me? You're trying to give them some value, right? But in reality, the real value is going to be greater than what you baseline. But you have to bring along their traditional mindset thinking uh, to get them to the next step, right? So we'll identify the line and identify the point, and we'll digitize it. We'll extract that data. We'll get it to digitize. We get it to outbound that data into the UNS. We'll connect it. We'll collect it. We'll store it, and then we'll analyze it. So we're looking for patterns with the subject matter expert. And the subject matter expert along the process are in different forms. There's the operator, right? There is the miller, right? The miller themselves about the variations of the grindings and so on and so forth. So that is, you're looking for the PID loop that exists, right?
Mhm.
Where you're going to make changes. If I make a tweak here, what's it going to give me? So you're looking for all those data points. By following that along, it gives them, and then collect, store, analyze, taking their baseline parameters, you're able to use them to get models when you have and visualize the data. So you're able to visualize the form of the line, visualize the data, and then create models that you can focus on points to see patterns within the data that is not native to the human eye, right? Because humans are very clever creatures, but we have limitations when there's too much data. Okay.
Mhm.
So by digitizing just one cell or a section of a line and then following the same rules, it gives a win, and a win that everyone can point to. And that's what's happened. It gives them an instant win, a value. And they said, oh, now it changes their business model, because the model of calculation per hour, they'll find that if they make the adjustments, their costs will go down and their reward goes up. But it's all based on decision of clear and stateful data that exists on the line. And
But
that's what's
then
been happening. But you can
how
expand it then after that. You expand out the remainder of the line, and you're gaining the rewards because you're seeing a bigger picture. And then you expand across the multiple lines, and then you expand across the site.
how do you define or how do you find points like that once you have the data already gathered?
When okay, you how do I
What's
find when the
what
data is already gathered, or
when the data is already gathered, what tools do you use to identify what can be changed, or how to change that for that matter?
uh, we have so there's in-house machine learning elements that we can use based on Python script, right? That we run on the edge. But then there's another tool we use called Expanse AI that generates models, and they're deployed. So they're our go-to at the moment because I haven't found anything else that's of benefit. So we use Expanse AI. It's a Polish dude actually that started it. He lives here in Ireland, right? And we use them to interact with the client to focus on the data, but the data is already clean for him, you see. So he's able to produce models in days where traditionally it would take weeks or even a couple of months on some stages. But Expanse have created a way of doing it very quickly. And this space of AI and machine learning is evolving at an alarming rate. Okay. We won't go in there, but it's a tool. We will use those tools. But any tool, look, let me show you here. We're not sharing the screen anymore, am I?
Yeah, I can. Oops, like this. Yeah.
Yeah. So there it is, Expanse AI. It's a functional node on the broker. So remember, I showed you all the vertical stack. There's the machines. Um,
Hmm.
there's the where have I got a SCADA system? I don't have a SCADA system there. Well, yeah, Ignition is a SCADA system. It's more. and then I have MES, and then I have ERP, and then I've got the cloud with AWS and Azure, right? But Expanse AI is a node on the broker, and Expanse can subscribe to all elements of the business. So as well as looking from the data flowing from the machine, and it's able to pull from the historical data in the historian or historical data in the business, and it's able to see patterns. And it's using with the subject matter experts, being the operator or the engineer or the technician or the persons who've been there for years, and say, look, I found this, and you tweak the model. And then it brings a focus very quickly because it's churning, it's able to consume the data far quicker than any human can, right? And far quicker. No human's capable of consuming all this data anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we do. And this is the approach we use. And this is what's working, no matter how sites. So I'll give you a small of the mill. But we also did this in life sciences. And we found a warp on a tablet press after the tablets were breaking further down the process in the blister packaging. But we were able to find the warp in the feta tablet press, the press. And it was only a few microns, but it was enough to reduce the compression of the tablet. And no one would have known it. It's not possible. There was not just the nature. You don't know what you don't know. But by gathering the data and applying machine learning on it, we were able to find data and information, turn that data into information that was unseen or capable, the human eye was not capable of finding it. And in turn, by finding that warp, it eliminated all the tablet breakages because they just changed the plate.
Mm-hmm.
But the tradition, what they had before this, they were not even with the SOPs and the excellent SOPs that they had in the procedures, right? They were not able to detect this warp because it was in the way it was sequential and on the index, and it wasn't clearly repeatable. You could observe it with the human eye. You couldn't. Is it happening at every 12 o'clock position? No, it was happening at 12, 3, 2. It was moving, but it was
Mm-hmm.
the AI was able to narrow it down, and we were able to narrow it down to the plate. And that happened over a period of 4 days, and it paid for the whole project, the savings, but it's all based on the data. Now, there's been other savings and other things since then, efficiencies and speeds and stops and starts and, Kanban moving of product and so on, that was able to come out by efficiencies and process. But if you're running off high quality, clean data, you can make decisions. All right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's interesting. So you actually use an AI tool for that. I've heard of an interesting example recently. I think I cannot tell who told me that. I don't even know the factory where it happened, but they started to monitor energy consumption
Yeah.
in the factory. So what happened was that they've noticed that on Thursdays they've had the largest energy consumptions. So the machines were working well on full throttle, and other days it was just half-assing,
Yeah.
and. And the director of the company looked at the data and said, we need to hire differently, because they were using a lot of temporary workers. So they were getting workers from agency, and they were getting the same amount of workers from Monday through Friday, right?
Yeah.
So they made a decision that we don't need people from Monday to Wednesday, or at least not that many. We don't need that many people on Friday. We only need a lot of people on Thursday. So a decision like this, just by observing the energy consumption, they were able to make a decision, saving them a lot of money on workers. So
I'll give you another one, right? Exactly on that. So we did a big food producer, poultry producer, right? I think it started last year and it's run into this year. But I was blown away by the process. And 5 million chickens a week, right? And the whole process it was amazing. But when you sit and you come in fresh eyes that have an understanding of equipment and environment, you take a different look, and you see parts of the lines, conveyor systems and heating systems. They're running, but there's no product on them. And you go, that's why, and we're monitoring power, right? There's large consumptions of power, and in a poultry facility, imagine the whole facility is a fridge. The
Hmm.
the whole building is a giant fridge with
Yeah.
holes in it, right? Because it's got open bays and things coming in and
Hmm.
out, and right. So it's a big hungry animal for energy, right? But by monitoring all these points with CT meters,
Yeah.
current transformer motors, and you connect them into edge devices again, and publishing the data into the broker and Stateville, you can start seeing when um, the lines are making money when there's product going down them, right? I'm being simplified, right? But if there's no product going down, you're burning money. So we were able to ask questions. Says, why are those lines running? And they'd be running for hours. I said, but the practice had got into the facility of, oh, it's easier just to run it than trying to get it going again later. Now, when we challenged that, yeah, it wasn't a problem. It just become a practice and the norm because people get used to a situation. Yeah. And when you had to challenge them, because there were staff coming and going that had some issues with, as you just said, issues of the transfer of the knowledge. So the reality was not getting the thing going again. The reality was the know-how of the staff of starting up a line, right?
Hmm.
So they focused on the line that they were able to turn it off when the shift wasn't running, right? And I won't the the benefit, it was a packing line, but it had a freeze drying element of it. Okay, they were not consuming the dry ice per se of the quick freeze dry on it. They were not consuming that, but they were still running systems which were burning energy, and they were using heating tunnels and the like. But by able to focus on that and say, right, what if we turn off, and you focus your energy, the data identified there's money to be saved by turning it off, but identified that if they put more effort into training, right, they get a quick reward. And if they put more effort then into focus on the process and how they used each section, there was more rewards. But it's all based on data that built up over time.
Hmm.
Okay. But you have to connect everything first and collect it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and present it to, well, either a trained eye or an AI to the, well, you use the combination, I imagine, of the human eye
Oh yeah,
and.
yeah. Well, let's finish the loop now, right? You have an engineering background as well. We need a control loop. So where is the loop in this instance? The completion of the loop is back and empowering the operator to make a decision, to make intelligent decisions. So you turn the operator into a data scientist per se, right? By giving them the information and training them, right? And educating and getting to know the line. I said, they're intelligent people, they're not stupid, right? And
Mhm.
if there's any service guys here online that have worked in a production environment, you watch someone in an operator environment that wants a break, right? They can
Mhm.
make a line stop in a situation that they want to go on an extra break. I've seen
Yeah.
all their types over here. So you don't try and get them to roll with you in the crew to make it super efficient. They just make it better. But it's all based on the data, yeah, and empower them to be able to make decisions on the data. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah. Sure. So, since I don't personally work in automation anymore, I think my last project
Yeah.
was 2 years ago. I'm still very interested in the topic though. But guys who will be watching us, they are, and I got this question asked a lot about transition from OT to IT, or maybe working on the border of IT and OT, because then generally it comes with a little bit of a different lifestyle, but also it's interesting. So what suggestion uh, would you give to a guy like this to to move to this world
Yeah.
from the OT? Let's say somebody has experience with PLC, SCADA, on the basic level. What should they learn? What should they do?
Yeah.
What?
Okay, let's just summarize what we're actually talking about. Let's stop saying OTIT. That is what it is, and it has produced us as individuals. But it's our basic toolbox. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The world of industry 4.0 is the convergence. Okay. You need to move data. We need to focus on data. Data and turning it into information to make intelligent decisions. So wherever you come from, follow the thread of what you are. Follow the take your core skills and you're going to add to them. So if you're coming out of the OT space, right, you will have automation capability. You'll have SCADA functionality, understanding capability. You may have instrumentation or not, right? But remember, just say you do if you're coming out of the automation side. Well, the first thing I would say to you is get to understand lightweight protocols such as MQTT and broker-based technology. Um, you can go at it directly that way, or get to understand an IIoT platform, right? An IoT platform of choice, and all of our lads will go through training. Every single one of them will go through is Ignition from inductive automation, right? It started out as a SCADA system, but it is a platform now, and it has matured over the years. It's a very powerful platform for yes, you can build a SCADA system with it. Yes, you can build a UNS with it. Yes, it has a broker capability, has all that capabilities, functionality, all within. And there is a free online training thing you can log in and do it. You just need to pay to do the core test. But any automation guy worth his salt, I recommend they do it. It's the first step into the fourth industrial revolution, Internet of Things. It 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 forces you to learn many other skills and enter into the touch points of what is the traditional IT application layers. Okay. Now,
Even if someone might not use Ignition, learning their system will give them understanding
yeah,
of how these things
absolutely,
work.
absolutely. It'll give them an insight. It'll start opening up their mind, and they'll see different things. You will learn from it. I'll go the other way. Flip it the other way. Um, I'd say to automation boys and the IT boys, learn Node-RED. Okay,
Okay.
Node-RED. Um, Fabulous tool. The nodes are on Node.js, and the nodes you can make the nodes are in libraries. You can pull them around, and you can create nodes to flows. Flows then gives you a sequence of events, and it's like a bit like ladder logic, but kind of. Uh, but it's the entry step. Now, then the automation boys, and I'll swing to the IT boys shortly because they come with a different tool set, a different mindset. Um, the the automation boys, I get them to learn Python in all the versions. Okay, don't just go for the latest version. Learn the original. Learn 2, learn Python 3 and 3.0 and so on. Right? Learn it. Um, and I also said start using the likes of ChatGPT even for coding, code checking. But write the code, but code check it. It's very good to check your quality of your code. Um, it's a good tool, and there's a lot of other tools out there that do that now. The whole AI space, embrace it, but don't become a slave to it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
learn the fundamentals that you can check your own work as well. But why you'd use these other things because it allows you to become efficiency will increase in speed. All right, when you're building things out, but learn those two things. Um, there's plenty of open source. Focus on open source. Now that brings me to the IT boys. About 90%, 90 people said 92, and who gives it? Yeah, it's 90% of all software is open source. Now, open source does not mean it's not secure, right? And for the IT directors and boys out there jumping up and down, oh, that's not true. No, you're wrong. Okay, you can make things secure, right? Open source gives us sets on standards, and there's released like Eclipse Foundation and many others, right? And they release these softwares and allows the community to grow and build things. And a lot of things that can be taken and turned into products, and you can grow a business on it. And those products can become nodes on the UNS to solve problems in the ecosystem. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So for the IT boys, let's say follow the same things I just said about the OT guys, but take a different path. Take a path that where you're coming from, you're comfortable with. You know, Python, learn Python. Um, you don't need to go and learn how to code a PLC yet, right? There may not be benefit of, but have an ability to understand of how to touch a PLC and understand how it works. Understand what it physically is. It's got I/O ports. It's got a CPU. It's got a functionality. It's got a backplane. Understand where the data resides. Not that you're going to build a machine, but to be able to enter just across the border. So you're going to be able to, when someone says, "I'm going to pull this tag or these tag," or what, that you know what the hell they're talking about. Okay, the automation boys will do it in their sleep because they're after building stuff. So, and then likewise, the automation guys start understanding things like APIs, REST APIs. So, right, how they using those APIs to connect to traditional IT applications, right? Now, here's where I see now, and this is recent. There's a couple of things happening, and then and I'm going right out in the edge now in a second. I'm going way out in the edge on the breaking edge stuff. What I'm going to see now, when you do Node-RED, you're going to do contain. You're going to I want when lads do Node-RED, also get them to do containerization. Use things like Docker, right? Taking a piece of an edge device, a piece of hardware like an IPC, and don't go out and buy the latest and greatest. Challenge yourself by taking an old PLC and see what you can run on top of it. And you use Docker. Docker's free and open. Yeah, containerization. Build up you have your. I'm going to use the phone, right? You have your piece of hardware. You have your OS and your BIOS. Layer your containerization. You can use VM as well, but don't go there. Your containerization in Docker, and then load your applications into the containers, right, into Docker and like Node-RED can run in Docker on the edge, on an edge device, or on a simple Raspberry Pi or things like that. Don't get carried away with something being, if I say Raspberry Pi, it's good for learning, right? It's cheap, it's a good entry, but you're learning how to containerize application. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the IT boys are used to applications on servers and on virtual machines and the like, and they may have played with Docker also, right, and containerization. But here is where I see the world is starting to merge. Kubernetes, right? I think the origin came out of it was called Borg inside in Google, and it broke out. Now Microsoft have a hold of it, Kubernetes, and now I'm seeing what it does. It allows the IT infrastructure to operate in pods and containerization and services within that same. And there's a commonality. So you're coming from an OT space and you're used to containerization on the edge. You can now migrate into Kubernetes, and the IT boys can take their application environment and migrate to Kubernetes. So it's common ground. So how I know that's working, because I've taken two guys from two different parts and I've made it do it in the workshop and independent of each other, and I'm seeing them, they're bridging. Now, okay, so Kubernetes, and if you do Google, anyone here, start hunting about what's happening in Kubernetes. You have Red Hat with their OpenShift, right? Built on OpenStack, built on OpenMetal or bare metal, OpenStack, OpenShift from Red Hat. It's all Kubernetes, and then you have Kubernetes itself. Or then you have things like MQTT broker, yeah, on the traditional digitization side of the business, yeah, where we digitize the plant floor, and then we're transitioning into stateful data and transactional data. You'll see things being used like Confluent out of Germany are using MQTT broker Kafka into Apache Shift, or Kafka, and I'm seeing Apache Camel. So I'm talking to both guys now, right? But then I'm saying these are applications, but then you start seeing the Kubernetes coming into play, and big organizations starting to adopt Kubernetes in order to manage their infrastructure and all these fragmented applications to do away with the spaghetti. Now, last but not least, right out in the edge, okay, right out in the edge, just launched, I think it was the 12th of this month, is DBOS, okay? Now, look it up, right? DBOS came out of MIT. There's some big hitters in the IT world of cloud computing and like are in it, and others, big names. that would have been involved in all these other elements, right? The same with the UNS. There's big hitters from the OT side of there. But DBOS is, rather than the operating system and then a DB sitting on top of it, the OS is sitting on top of the DB on the kernel, right? Now, I'm not going any further because it's going to spoil the story. Go look at it. It's evolving. It's out there. It's launched. It's going to grow. That's going to shift IT management, IT infrastructure as well. That's where I predict. So back to what you said, it's inevitable things are going to start interacting with each other. It's inevitable we're going to see seamless transfer of data because it's going to be contextualized and normalized because there's a demand for it. All right.
But then, just one question that because when you're talking about all these technologies,
Yes.
doesn't it create a new type of complexity if this type of systems, because we replace one type of issues, which is dealing with layer architecture, where we have to develop all these interfaces and they don't really work seamlessly. When we start to deal with new type of architecture, which is not really standardized, really, isn't it going to get really difficult for, let's say, someone is running a factory and they decide to get a solution like yours or from your competition? Isn't it going to be then difficult for them to get a specialist who is going to be able to sit down and make a minor change in the system, even make an update of the system? Because now, let's say I know Siemens and Alan Bradley PLC, but if you give me Beckhoff, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to learn from a YouTube tutorial in 2 days. Maybe I'm not an expert in Beckhoff, but I know how to move around and I know how to do the modifications. Same with the SCADA systems, probably. How about stacking all these technologies together? Doesn't it introduce a new level of complexity to these systems?
Okay. Do you know what the current environment looks like if you look at an IT infrastructure? Do you know what it looks like?
No, not really. I've never been on
Right.
the IT side.
Right. Well, this is fact. I'm going to show you. Can I want to share the screen again?
Yes, sure.
Right. And watch the crowd go mad. Anyway, window, share. That's what it is. We got this from a client and we just modified it ourselves. The IT infrastructure in any organization is now like a spaghetti. Everything is point-to-point integration, and they manage it as best as they can, right? By changing to the architecture and running it in parallel, you can apply an application, right, to the ecosystem, or the same two applications from different vendors, and run them side by side, and compare them side by side, as in two horses in a race, and you can see how they perform. But you also see how the provider performs with you. Now, that means it simplifies your business, where you can run things, but not multiple points of connections and change controls. You have one point of connection to get data to move around. As for taking the learning of knowledge, you made a concern. Say, if I put a Siemens in front of you, understand it, but if I put a Beckhoff in front of you, it take your time. Well, at this stage, you'd ask, under what circumstances would you have a Beckhoff, and then under what circumstances would you need all members of staff to service? Because what are you? You're a manufacturing facility, right? That's what you are. So is it more cost effective for the rare occasion that you may need to change on the logic on the PLC? Listen to this. The logic on the PLC, to hire the OEM and pay him let's say, $5,000 to come in and make the change that I want that may happen once a year, once every 2 years, or hire an individual to go on a learning course to be somewhat semi-proficient on a technology that you may or may not use. Remember, a manufacturing facility is not an engineering house, right? It's not an engineering house, and it needs to focus on it's a manufacturing facility. It's not a place where engineers go to play, right?
Hmm.
They need to focus on what it is. If you want to be a coding and a programmer, my position is go join an OEM, okay, or go build machines, right? The idea, the idea of coding on a site is not my for a supporting system. It's not my default, okay. In Industry 4.0 environment, you do it in a contractual sense, in a controlled manner, and you use data to make those decisions, right? Rather than building up expertise on coding of a PLC. I buy a machine to do a job. That machine must be based on the user requirements I want. However, the management extraction and the structure of a UNS, that's what if I owned a facility, that's what I'd be investing in my ability of my crews to connect to systems into an ecosystem and learn this. And that brings me back to the using of ignition, of broker-based technology, of low-code technology such as Node-RED to pull data, not focused on learning a new PLC, right? I kick that
Hmm.
to the touch because it's right out on the edge. I don't need to know about it, right? So there's a bit of a mindset change, a bit of a focus, a bit of a convergence that we are no longer OT and IT. We're moving into the convergence of it's all about data moving to where it needs to be, and it's a bit of a reset, a reskilling, um, and we also need to see the increases of apprenticeships. Okay, across all sectors. In different parts of the world, they've died away. Right in the 80s and 90s, and I grew up, they were very common. They need to come back because old gits like me need to pass on the knowledge that we've gained so the new generation can add to it and be better again, right? And colleges do not have the exposure to industrial space to transfer it. And no disrespect to them, but yeah, they are limited by their own exposure and what they think they are producing. Okay, so
Yeah.
I went around the garden to answer the question, but I hope and pull me up if you're not happy with my answer, right?
No, I understand. I understand your point. I've just seen different models of uh, how production facilities maintain their uh, OT and IT infrastructure.
But
So
remember what I said to you. We don't work with everyone because if they're still thinking on that mindset, they're not ready. They're not ready to digitally transform. They're not ready to embrace this, and they'll be passed out because you can't beat this. This is the show. I didn't invent it, right? I just mastered it, and it is unbelievably fast to install, and it's not disruptive. You don't have to rip and replace. Like our traditional approach, what we've always done is there's a lot of ripping and replacing with old systems. Yeah,
yes, the
you don't need.
revamp. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, look, there's a company called um, uh, OT. It's OTEE.io. They're out of the Scandinavian region. Um, they have a technology, and I met them. I'm blown away. I'm rarely blown away by technology, but they have a solution now that you can address obsolescence um, by without replacing a PLC, without ripping it out. Right? It's using a soft PLC function in basic form, soft PLC nearline to reduce the load on the CPU and doing the functionality on an IPC by capitalizing on the IOs that exist in the current PLC, right? And when people say, "Oh, you can't do that," what about safety? The safety is safety; it's still there, right? And people say you can't do that. Well, you can do that because you just mentioned the Beckhoff. Beckhoff is a pass-off PLC, right? It's
Hmm.
not the same as some of the Siemens units, and Siemens are offering this a similar solution now.
Yes.
So I say to anyone listening, check out OTEE.io. I am I know them. I would and I intend to be affiliated with them to use them, but there's no benefit of me saying this. I just love the tech, right? And there is always change. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah, sure. I'm on their website, but I'm going to look up the details later.
Yeah, the other one I'm going to say, another sweet thing I said about learning. Look up Flow Fuse, which manages Node-RED. So Nick O'Leary invented Node-RED when he's in IBM, released it in 2016, and he started Flow Fuse when he came out. But for techies, tech heads, both IT and OT, listen, go look at it. It's a seismic shift. Okay, Flow Fuse. All
all right.
right.
One question that I forgot to ask you earlier. So, and I was supposed to ask that because of course someone might be interested in introducing some type of these solutions in their facility. What
Yes.
suggestion would you give to a person responsible for production or a factory owner looking to modernize their production and implement this type of solutions? What should they look at first?
Ah, right. So if it's you, let's take a factory owner. Yeah, a business owner. Let's take that scenario. Digital transformation is a strategy, not a project. So a factory owner, before they do anything, you need to understand what is the strategy. So I would say to them, they need to define what is a digital strategy. To do that, they need to do a thing called a digital maturity assessment. Now, digital maturity assessment, be very careful. You must incorporate all elements of the business and you must start from the bottom up. And it's a root and branch investigation. And it is painful, right? It is painful. It's like going to the doctor, right? And they're going to give you a full checkup, right? And they're going to tell you things that you don't want to hear. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's the same thing. You're going to find a root and branch status of all parts of your business and where it is. And there's a known methodology. It's rating of 1 0 to 5 for scale, and then it's across 10 pillars, right? And incorporates all parts of the business. And you literally drill down to every one of them. All the way, so you start out from the operator to the supervisor to engineering, control, quality department, IT department, blah 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 blah, all the way up to the executive level, and you're asking a set, a range of questions. And there's a range of questions. I think it's 23 questions that goes out in advance, and that's populated, and then it comes back in rank and rating, and it gives you a full um, uh, across an average rating of where you are as a digital maturity in the company, uh, in comparison to your peers globally, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where you are as an industry 4.0 company, right? So Tesla would be at a 4.2, 4.8, somewhere there as a maturity. They're not a full blown on that level. Where I've seen companies that we are actively working at that are on the other end, the way end of the scale, like not even, and it's not a thing of moving from industry 2.0 to 3.0 in a linear format. It's a maturity. So the business owner then will have a clear view of where his current state of play of what his business is based on a ranking, rating, and a matrix. And from that, then you can calculate, you can build a roadmap. Now, the roadmap is, how do I digitally transform my organization? I start by digitizing the asset, because you profile all the assets, and we would build it up. 1 second, I'll use another tool. And this brings on board with someone who's responsible for production, or we would call a site champion, right? I just want
Mm-hmm.
to present one more slide again. Oh, come on, share screen. Here we go. Slow. Right.
Mm,
So digital shortening is, you see my screen?
it's still loading.
You see
Oh
my
yeah,
screen?
now I see it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's take the scenario we're going to do. Like I told the mill, we take a sample line. So we follow these steps, and this is like you're seeing in a recce team, right? because the production environment or the is a jungle, right? Because you don't know what's in there. You haven't a clue. It's a jungle, right? So you need to inventory the business and the asset layer. And we have technology to find out. And you connect the system, say, well, what is it? It's an S7, it's an S300, a 200, it's a backup, or some obscure thing that came off the back of a truck in China. You don't know, right? But you have to look at it. So we inventory that. Then we inventory the intelligence with respect to the product process environment, right? The process step, the people that are there across all
What do you mean by that?
shifts, different shifts. What do you mean by what?
Sorry, because you said you make an assessment of the environment of the.
So we do an audit. It's called like we do an assessment. We do an audit. We inventory the asset layer again, right? So we look at the
Mhm,
production lines, all the equipment within the facility so
mhm,
starting from bottom up. And then we see, well, how can we connect to all of these things? So the idea is to connect and transfer their data. Can we see all the tags? Are the systems open? Are the machines locked by the OEM that you can't see the data tags or the tags, right? So that gives you a profile and helps you create the roadmap of getting there. And it gives you an order of costing. We inventory the intelligence, which we interview the people on the line. How do you run the line? What's your SOPs? What SOPs are, and do you follow your SOPs? Are they mature? Or when is the last time the SOPs were updated? Or do you look at the SOP and just go, yeah, I tick a box and I don't do that. I just do it my own way. And then you capture all those elements. So you're looking for the intelligence in the business and how the company takes on board things that are happening at Coalface. Connected intelligence and network. So we build out a network and an architecture after we do a design and a build, and we integrate it into the unified namespace, which consists of a broker, a historian, the IoT platform, and the various tools to connect to the asset layer based on the profile. Present the information as in it's publishing into the broker, and we visualize it and in the format after being normalized and contextualized back here, visualize it. We learn from that information by talking to the subject matter experts and the intelligence that we've gathered here. And then we expand on the UNS. So you take one machine, two machine, the line, and then the next line, and it just takes over the whole lot. Now, it consumes the legacy environment in a state of control. You don't do it by ripping and replace it. It consumes the legacy environment into the ecosystem in a controlled manner over a space of time. So it's not a big bang, big cash wallop. You're getting wins along the way all the time. All right. So
mhm.
this is how we do it. So you asked me the question about the owner. Well, the owners, we do a DTMA and then we can build out a roadmap. But if someone's coming but a product owner, if we're doing a DTMA, we'll run into the product owner on the line or someone for a production director or an internal champion. And if we're doing a DTMA, we'll naturally find them. If we're not doing DTMA and they want us to bring us in to solve a problem to convince the owner to do a DTMA or do it to digitally transform the organization, we'll do exactly the same thing. We'll target an area with a pinch point that he feels that will give him the most reward, and we inventory the intelligence, the information, and we build the UNS so he gets a win out, and we give him a visualization and a data storage that he can do trends analysis. An example of this, we took two autoclaves in a medical device company. You know what an autoclave is?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I've worked in pharma and
Yeah. So medical device company, we were able to digitize them, and just by giving, and we trained the operators now, right, into using Axiom, which is they're able to pull on the historical data of the batch, and they're able to pull the stateful data. And just by letting the operators, they were able to identify that they made savings of over 115,000 in the first month by understanding and using the machine in a different way, as in doors opening and closing, longevity, and just the way they were interacting with it, they could make those savings. But that was based on the data. But we had to teach the operators how to interrogate the data using the tools that we gave them on the line, right? So you do the same thing, you give a win when it comes to a product owner or a line champion or a in-house champion. You empower them with a tool that they can get a win based on the data that you've harvested. And then you expand from there because it'll naturally start consuming the rest of it because you can point to it. It is giving them savings straight away. It's not that it's not going to give savings. It will 100% give them savings because they've never before been able to access the data. And I've had all the arguments, the theoretical battles. Oh, that's not true. You're making that up. I said, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All
And
right.
even so much so that I've said, to previous to get past the log jam, I said, right, I'll pay for it, but if it works, you buy it.
Okay. Okay. So you basically start with an audit, and you take it from there. Is that
Uh,
right?
we start with an education, then with a consultancy to take it from there. And I insist 100% that whatever customer engagement, they must allow us, they must identify people that we can train to turn them into us. We must from the beginning. There's
Mm-hmm.
not one customer. And if someone said, I don't want to train, well, I said, right, let's hire them together. And we will hire them. Even we will hire them on their behalf. We will train them. We'll take them in there's a thing called a supplier support program that we have. So we will train them as our employees, but on the understanding that maybe from the region of the understanding that once they pass boot camp per se, right, that they're good enough and they've passed and they're rubber stamped by Galaris as a capable individual, well, then they can transition into the employment of that customer, right? But they enter our employment of the understanding that they will transition once they pass this. And why do I do that? Because I know I'm going to produce a quality engineer. But if they hire them, I can't challenge them. They're not my employee. I have to go back to the client. So yeah, it's different. And where did that model come out of? That came out of Life Semiconductor, where I worked in it back in the 90s. It works,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Okay.
they get a quality person.
That's an interesting model. I'd never heard about it, but seems
The
like it
biggest
works.
tip, yeah, no, I was part of that environment. That's where I picked it up. You pick up things along your professional career. So the biggest chip manufacturer at the Intel used that model where they
Mm-hmm.
they buy a tool set, but they buy the expertise. And along with the expertise, and some of them they can be identified as if they can cherry pick who they want to keep um, in part of that transition. So over a 3-5 year, and they'll say, right, I'm going to take Bob, but we like Bob. Bob's really good, and he's helped us in this area. We're going to hire him, and then he transfers over into the Intel from green badge to blue badge. And anyone that's in the Intel environment will know exactly what I'm talking about: green badge, blue badge. Anyway, but it's been some time. Yeah, it works, and it works all over the world.
All right. All right. Mm, big topic, and it's been there for over a year now. So it's maybe a little bit more, stabilized because a year ago everybody was crazy about the AI. I think the hype is still there, but it's not as it used to be. Of course, more people use AI,
Yeah.
but I'm curious how you see it, and particularly in the environment of in the industrial environment. How will this affect the industrial production? Because well, we have the large language models. They're not
Yes.
too smart when it comes to logical reasoning.
Yes.
So there are different tools for that probably, but
Yes.
large language models are not it. Like they cannot analyze the edge cases and so on. So how do you think this will work in the future?
So
And do you
yeah.
think, for example, let me finish. Do you think, for example, the digital twin technology will allow to train the models to actually serve as automation engineers in the future, maybe?
So in reverse order, without question, yes, the digital twin it's here, and it works with the UNS. How I know 100% because we were able to ingest BIM 360 files from a life sciences big facility build. You know BIM 360 files. BIM 360 is based on CAD file structure that multiple people can work on it while they're building the facility, and they're able to take out sections and work on it and design to send the to change designs as they're building the facility, right? And they become the as built. So every day we were able to ingest those BIM 360 files into the broker and then spin it up in Unreal Gaming Engine, right?
Mhm.
So the Unreal Gaming Engine became a representation of, and okay, the use of the word digital twin has been a bit bastardized, to tell the truth, right? So it's to create an environment that digitally represents or can be used to simulate changes or future state of the business, right? And it's a lot more complicated than that. But we were able to create that in Unreal. We were able to interact with the physical world through the Unreal Gaming, gaming engine. So the BIM 360 gives you the change in state of the build, physical build, the digitization of the plant floor using edge device technology, publishing its tags into the broker, combining those in Unreal. So you take a step file of the machine and you stick it up in Unreal inside in the building. I can show you,
Mhm.
but I can't show you now, but I can show you one. We've done it, right?
You know,
So it actually,
I've seen because you've shown me something.
did I? Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, you've shown me how are these robots called that drive
An
around the
AMR,
factory?
yeah, AMR,
Yes,
autonomous mobile robot, and fleet mode. So that the digital twin will allow us to do things. It will allow us to run scenarios. Now, you need an environment that you can apply high quality data to give you a justified output. Now we're going really out there now, right? So let's just do this. And there's some people it's going to scare them, right? But don't be. So it's just an environment where you can play safe. So you can create in essence what is a dev environment to move machines around in your facility and see how it all by changing the layout or changing machines or making changes before you change your physical environment, right? So it allows you to see how you can scale and increase efficiencies. But you need to use AI to identify the impact of all the other elements on data streams, that if you make a change in the digital environment, what's it going to result in the output? Is it going to give me the rewards that I want? So that is there using the UNS that allow you to build that, right? And it's going to continue to evolve. Now, let's flip back to your original question of the use of AI in the buzzword. Crap in, crap out, right? If we don't feed it, and I know that, and hold on, this data scientists are going to go bananas on this, right? I'll give me, and I've had it all before, and I've no problem standing out my own, or in limited numbers and disagree with the herd, right? So, there was the general belief, oh, let's pull all data and stick it into a data lake, and the data scientists will sort it out. But remember, data scientists, amazing people, but they're coming at it with a set of rule books from their structure of how to analyze data, and they will
mhm,
find things, right? But it needs to be more efficient. It needs to be more into the autonomous environment. So
mhm,
if you structure and clean the data in advance, right, from the edge, right at the edge, and the data is clean, and contextualized and normalized, well, then that amplifies their their capabilities and output at an exponential rate, right? So they can give you more input, more input of saving potential and cost savings that may be based on the quality of the data. Now, AI, and we have seen it since November 2021, where large language models first kicked off and all the rest of it, it is not going away. The genie's out of the box, right? It's out of the bottle. It's out.
mhm.
It's too late. You can't put the cap back on, right? So we're going to have
Yep,
to swim with it. But just to let me
but
finish, right? Just to let me finish, I'll just tell you now, Peter. We are now heading into a changing environment at an alarming rate. We're heading into generative AI, and I'm not going to say I'm a subject matter expert. No, I will not. But I'm not. I'm not that at all. But I am one quite astute to picking technologies and engaging it with layers of our architecture and coming benefits of it. So I want to give you two things. Uh, we now see neural net processing chipsets. Okay, we now see the announcement about 7 days ago, I think,
yes,
where
yes.
NVIDIA and Blackwell uh, uh,
I
announced.
don't know. I know about Nvidia for sure.
Right, they made an announcement on the chipset. We're now seeing a seismic shift of capability that we've never seen. It's disruptive, but if it's able to feed on stateful, high quality data, we are looking at a seismic change, and we're looking at coding as we know it changing, and we're looking at uh, a new skill set. So neural processing, like the human brain, large amounts of data in to give a predictable output. So neural processing. So we have next generation edge devices. There's one here in my office, the first prototype that has neural processing capability, where we can run machine learning on the edge with a neural processing chipset. Right? These are the changes that are happening. That will have an impact in itself. So AI, if we get the data and get applied and get the data scientists interacting with us, and we're embracing all these changes in environments, we are going to see the benefits on a grand mass scale. Okay, that's where I see it happening. It is gaining momentum, but we need the physical asset layer and the data structure in a normal. So these AIs in a controlled environment can be used for the greater benefit of finding savings and in a digitized business, a digitally transformed business.
But then, are you one of the people who believes that because obviously you know more about this than me? Uh, do you believe that actually the work of a programmer will be replaced uh, by the job that AI can do in a much shorter period of time?
Okay, so you, as we are right now, you need to code. We need to be able to code and build things. We, as human beings, are lazy creatures. We will take the easiest path forward. And if the next generation decides, sure, I can code and I can get something else to do coding for me, if I can create the innovative need or the imaginative element, to imagine, dream, right? And I can use code and use tools to make the code for me that can still make it all work. What's going to win out over time?
And well, of course, if we get to the level of development of these tools that will allow that, obviously the laziness is going to win.
Yeah.
So
So what I'm saying to you, as I stand, we still need to code. We still need it. But humanity, if we don't destroy ourselves first, will continue to evolve, and we will take the happy path, and we will drop things down, like coach builders, right? Coach builders are farriers, right? They were everywhere. They're gone now, right? There's very few left. And a coach builder, what you know, what I mean, a horse and cart, a coach,
Mhm.
coach builders, that skill, a lot of those skills are gone. So skills will come and go. So do I believe that AI will replace? It will definitely have an impact. Absolutely. Uh, but at what point will it replace it? I can't say. It may be this year, next year, or 10 years, but it's definitely going to have an impact. And it all depends on the learning appetite and of next generation. For the likes of us who have coded and still like the code, you will continue to do it, but you will also look for an easier way to do things. All
Yeah,
right.
that's
Probably not a clear answer that you wanted, but that's where my belief is. I'm on this journey.
no, and we cannot absolutely. I wouldn't expect a very clear answer from you because we can't see the future. I just was curious about how you see the evolvement and potential outcome of what's happening
Yeah,
now.
but Piotr, you know me some time now. If I find that there's an AI tool that is more efficient in creating code, and I can validate it, and test it, I'm going to use it. I'm going to absolutely going to use it. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, sure. All right. I think we've had a very nice chat. I've learned quite a bit. today, and I think guys who listened and who are going to listen are going to learn quite a bit too. If someone wants to find you, how can they find you?
I'm not that hard. I'm easy enough to find. I'm not that hard that you can't find me. You'll find me on LinkedIn, Galeras. Find Galeras. You'll find my name attached to it. You also, do Google search. You'll find me, or you can even, you can share my LinkedIn with individuals. But I'm easily found. All right, and I'm quite
Sure.
approachable. I'm quite approachable, right? So, um, I mightn't always agree with people, but look, right, I'm approachable.
Yeah, yeah, definitely you are. Sometimes you come off as a person who easily loses the temper, but you're definitely easy to talk to, I would.
Yeah. Now, let me correct. I said that temper and passion. I'm passionate. Let's say I'm passionate about what I do.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, definitely.
Okay. It's been a pleasure, sir. And all I'd say to you, keep well, and hope to meet up with you sometime soon. All right.
Yep, sure. Thank you very
And
much for your time. And yeah, thanks for the viewers. You can leave some comments, and of course, if you're interested in what John does, you can approach him, or you can approach me.
yeah,
And
just another thing to note: there's a large contingency of the community, myself included, are going to Hanover in I think it's last week in April at the fair, the Messy Industry 4.0, the whole digital event. So the likes of Walker Reynolds and many others are all going to be there. So yeah, if you want to listen to interesting debates and if you're around, look us up. Going to be there.
sure,
A lot of people there.
a lot of Polish people in Hanover Messe always. So yeah, you can meet John also. So we're finishing for now. So thanks for watching, and yeah, we hear each other soon.
Very good.